What's up, Elite Army? This is your kinda well, kinda toxic host, Sarah Rittendale, bringing you another episode of Wellish. Elite, what's going on? Hi, sisters. I want to talk to you guys today about being lonely when you're trying to heal, because I often find myself super fucking irritated by the people in my life that I experience that don't have the same mentality as me. And I know that sounds closed-minded and kind of fucked up, but I mean it in the sense of when I can see that somebody could be doing more because they have potential, or I can clearly see the lack of healing causing their behavior. It drives me nuts, because whether there's somebody close to me that I care about and I want more for them, or there's somebody that I am not close to but I'm interacting with and I'm like, oh my God, like, you suck, and it's so clear why. I just find myself super annoyed by that. And I can totally picture myself in previous situations, and I've seen it happen with other people I know that, you know, you're trying to heal yourself, you're trying to become this best version of yourself, and you get so lonely because the people in your life don't think the same way as you anymore. And it's crazy because you think you're trying to be the best version of yourself. Wouldn't that make people flock to you? Wouldn't you think that you gain confidence, you gain the ability to set boundaries, you're this like calm, cool, awesome person. And so you have this mentality like that we're in high school and it's this popularity contest situation, that if you act as your best self, if you become this like best, wonderful version of you, that you'll have all of these people in your life. But in adult life, it's pretty the opposite. And it's typically one of two reasons. One of them being that people don't agree with you anymore and they think that you're weird for thinking the way that you think. They're threatened by you. They're jealous of you. They're invalidating you. They're making it hard for you to set boundaries. They're being toxic. Like, that's one experience. And another experience is that you are choosing not to engage with people that you can tell are no longer healed, because you know that life can be better than that. You hold yourself to a higher standard and don't want to interact with that. You feel like you can't understand why people are behaving that way. So it's better for you to just like not engage with it, because it just hurts your brain to think about how they live like that. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about what typically goes down when you're trying to heal and become the best version of yourself, what that looks like, what reaction typically comes from a lot of people in an effort to help you feel validated through this super common experience. But it's an experience that we feel so alone in. You don't realize how many people do experience it if you don't have a bunch of healed people right in your inner circle. And then I want to talk to you guys about coping with that, coping with the feelings of loneliness, coping with the irritation that comes from wanting people to be better, what we can do about that, how we can heal ourselves from that experience. We're going to talk about all of it today. So without further ado, let's get into the episode. The first big thing that I experience and that I see people experience is that you don't agree with people. You do not agree with the majority of people. And it's mind-blowing, because you think that this is the quote-unquote right way to feel. You feel good feeling this way. It's what everybody wants. Doesn't everybody want to be the best version of themselves? Doesn't everybody want to feel good? Doesn't everybody want to be in alignment with their true self? Because it seems so obvious, and maybe people want it, but a lot of people don't work for that, dude. Like, it's crazy. And you find yourself being the minority. Like, a majority of people don't ever make the effort to heal, or people will think that they're making the effort to heal by playing a victim mentality and, you know, waiting for life to one day catch up to them and make their life better, or whatever the circumstances. They might think about it, but there's no genuine action behind it. And it's wild, because it really makes you feel invalidated. The fact that you have this healed growth mindset and then other people don't, you're like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I the one being singled out here? Why do you guys all think one way and I think the other way? And it triggers you to think, am I doing something wrong? Is there something wrong with me? What's happening? And it's just so invalidating to be surrounded by people that don't have a like mindset as you. I heard a quote the other day, and you guys might have seen it on Wellish's Instagram because I posted it because I thought it was so good. Literally such a life-changing perspective is that you cannot talk butterfly language with caterpillar people. And it blew my mind because it is so true. You feel like you're talking to the same people, but you realize that they have a different mentality and they don't agree with you and they're invalidating you and they're making you feel like you should question yourself. They're making you feel silly for believing the things that you believe in and wanting to show up as the better version of yourself. And this quote you can really apply to if you have big dreams and want to accomplish a lot in your life and have, high hopes. It doesn't have to be this like crazy large scale goal that you're trying to reach, like becoming a CEO. While it could also mean having a healthy relationship and thinking that you're never going to leave the honeymoon phase, or that you can move out of state and, live in a van and take over the world. Or it can mean anything along those lines, anything that you want to accomplish in your life. If people don't agree with you, they have a very traditional mindset. They have a very low level mindset, not in a negative way, but just in a, white picket fence kind of way, that they don't try to strive for more than what is presented right in front of them. And that's okay. If that's how people want to choose to live their life, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it as long as they're happy. But when you try to show up as this better version of yourself and tell people these like big, wonderful growth mindset ideas that you have, and they just invalidate you and shut you down and don't understand you, even if they're not being rude, they just like don't hear it the same way you do, it can feel so discouraging. And it can feel like there's something wrong with you and like you're doing something that you shouldn't be. But it's just that they don't think the same way that you do. Your brain works one way, and lots of people have the same brain that you do. Every elite here has the same brain that you do. And I can tell you that that's a good amount of people. But there's also a lot of people, and typically we see that it's more people in our circles than not that have this growth healing mindset. And so when you are thinking this way and trying to talk to people that don't have it, they get, defensive. They just see life differently than you do. So you cannot hold them to the standard to validate you and have the same perspective and expect them to have a response that's going to make you feel good, because their brain just doesn't work that way. Like, that's just not how they move through life. And that's okay. But don't make yourself feel like there's something wrong with you for operating the way that you want to operate. Another thing that I really experience is not being able to wrap my fucking head around people behave in a way that I would never behave. It's just when people are not doing well for themselves, when people aren't respecting themselves, when they're not setting boundaries, when they're being toxic, when they're being fucking mean, when they're playing victim, they're, doing whatever unhealthy mindset thing that they're doing. I can see it from a mile away, and it drives me nuts because I sit there and try to problem solve it and justify it for them and make sense of the whole thing. And I know I shouldn't do that, but that's just what my brain automatically does. It's getting better, but I still do that from time to time. And when I do that, it's typically for this reason, because I cannot wrap my mind around something that I would never do. And it's almost like, in the most humble way, you develop this God complex because you have a different perspective, because you can see from a healed growth mindset how you want to show up and what the best way to act in alignment with your best self is. And you're not expecting perfection out of anybody by any means, but just wanting people to show up in a better way for themselves, knowing that there's a better way to live, knowing that there's a more peaceful place that they could be at in their mind, but they make no effort to get there, it can be infuriating. And so you find yourself continuously disagreeing with them because they just can't see things the way that you see them, but you know that you're right because you're at this healed growth mindset and they're so not, but you just keep butting heads because no matter what the topic is, it's not even like you're necessarily discussing becoming the best version of yourself. It's like you're discussing any sort of like regular everyday topic, and we can't agree on it because we just view it so differently. You gain this level of self-awareness and have new insights and perspectives that you no longer can be on the same page as the people that don't think that way. Like, you realize that talking shit about people just is a waste of your energy, but the people in your life always want to do that. And you used to always give into that. And so then when you start to kind of not do that anymore, it almost causes this like disagreement because it's like they think that you think that you're better than them. And that's not what you think, but you just know that it doesn't make you feel good. And you know they would feel better if they didn't do it. And so it causes this rift. Healing oftentimes too involves setting boundaries. And when you set boundaries with people, they don't always like it. They feel like you're attacking them. They feel like you're saying something's wrong with them. Again, especially if it's something new that you're implementing, they're like, where the fuck is this coming from? And it can cause disagreements because maybe they don't have the same values that you do. And you want to eliminate things from your life that you used to incorporate into your life. And they can't understand that, especially if the person is accustomed to a different dynamic in the relationship already. And when you get to this point of a higher self-awareness and the confidence to set the boundaries and prioritize things, you're also more willing to speak up about topics. The more that you step into the best version of yourself, the more confident you feel, the more you cannot help but state your opinion and share what you believe, because you're going to stand up for yourself, stand up for your values, not allow other people to walk all over you or treat you like shit. You step into this healed growth version of yourself, and it can cause these disagreements through, making sure that nobody treats you badly, and not even like that, like not even treating you badly, but like just that you are speaking up for yourself and somebody might have an opposing opinion. And so you find yourself kind of in more back and forth conversations than you were in the past when you were living more agreeable and people pleasy. You start to embrace this authentic version of yourself. You start to truly live in alignment with the life that you want to live, and you start prioritizing certain things through that, and that can cause people to get irritated. It can cause disagreements because what you once prioritized, you no longer prioritize. You might have used to prioritize friendship over your own mental well-being, and now you prioritize your own mental well-being over just being friends with anybody, and people aren't going to be happy about that. They're not going to understand why you won't let them walk all over you anymore, or that they can't talk shit around you anymore, or whatever the circumstances. You're starting to cause this level of disagreement because your opinions and viewpoints start to differ from theirs. And the truth is, you don't care. You'll do it anyways because you know that you're living authentically for who you want to be or who you truly are. The second thing that I see often is you don't see eye to eye with important people in your life anymore. And this sounds a little bit similar to what we were just talking about, but that is just like flat disagreements. This is more sad and disappointing because it's the people in your life that aren't toxic, that aren't bad for you, that you love deeply, but now you just don't see life the same way as them anymore, and it can be really defeating. A lot of the time too, these people are willing to grow on their own. They are on their own healing journey because they are people that you truly love, and it's most likely the people that you're closest with and really love do have a similar mindset to you and want better for themselves. But when they're not at the same healing spot as you, it can feel discouraging, because it's like you can see their efforts and you can see their potential, but they're just not reaching it yet, and we just don't see eye to eye, and it's hurtful. And it's not hurtful, but it's like sad. Like you hurt inside because you just want them to get to the place that you know that they can get, and they're not doing it, or it's so clear what they could be doing to better themselves and they're not doing it. And so you don't see eye to eye on most things between the two of you. You have to come to terms with not being able to control what other people do. You have to know that they are who they are, and they have these mindsets because of everything, every itty bitty detail in their life that's led them to this moment, that they have their own perceptions based on everything in their life that they've been exposed to and that they've been taught. And there's nothing that you singularly could do to make them change. And honestly, they don't need you to judge them for it. They don't need you to help them and therapize them and do all of these things. They're going to figure it out on their own, and they're going to live their life in a way that is happy. And it's your decision how you want to incorporate them into your life. If it's somebody you care about, you should be able to accept them for who they are and not have to worry about the way that they live their life and what they do, what they choose to make them happy. It's when, and it can be really upsetting too when you can tell that they're not happy and that they could be doing more for themselves. And it is hard because it gets really clear what people could be doing better, but you just have to know that you cannot control other people's outcomes. You can only control how you interact with those people, how you react to the things that they say to you and the things that present themselves. Because if it's a good friend, it's a good person in your life, you're going to be able to have, different viewpoints, different perceptions, and discuss those different perceptions and hear each other, maybe learn from each other and agree to disagree and know that that's not the end of the world. But a lot of the time, going back to the first point, is that these disagreements cause these arguments and people get upset about it and people get threatened and feel like you're saying something about them when you're not. When both people are healing and growing, but they just don't see eye to eye, you can be okay with the other person and feel like that the other person is trying to do well for themselves and appreciate the stage that they're at for where they're at, and trust, just like you have gotten to the point that you are at, that they will eventually get to the point that they need to be. On a more toxic level, people will expect you to continue to show up as the person that you've always been in their life. And when you're not that person for them anymore, you no longer serve the benefit that they labeled you as in their life. And they don't want to involve themselves with you anymore. Like if you're the butt of the joke all the time, if they're the person that they can go and vent to about everything to, and it's just too mentally draining for you, but you didn't know how to set a boundary and say, I can't take this on. If they are constantly bossing you around and telling you how to live your life, and you would just say like, okay, that makes sense, and go with it, then one day you stop doing that. It's like these people have a need that's not being met within themselves that's causing them to project that onto you. And so when they no longer have you to project that on, they get upset about that and they feel bad about that, and they feel that you're betraying them or that you're doing something wrong and want to make you feel that way. They want you to know that you could be doing something better, that there's something that you're like failing them in some way, but really it's just that they need to learn how to heal in themselves. Another thing too is that you could be afraid of people's judgment, that when you start to show up as this person that you really align with and that is the best version of yourself, but it is different than how you've ever showed up before, that can be fucking scary. It can feel like, how am I supposed to show up as this person when it's never who I've been? I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to, I've gotten this far, they already know me as this, and what am I going to do to change that? But you always are allowed to develop and change and implement new habits and new strategies into your life. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And people either have to accept that, or they have to not accept it and remove themselves from your life, or vice versa. But you still have this fear of judgment from them. And so it's almost easier to kind of back off and not involve yourself with them to prevent having to deal with the circumstances and feelings and mindsets that that you would have to come face to face with if you bring that person back into your life. You might not see eye to eye with people too, because there's this different level of communication that you are now expecting, and a different level of communication that you are giving out to people, and people might not know how to receive it. And through that, you have an issue really understanding each other, since you're communicating in a different way than you ever previously knew how to communicate with them. So it's almost a relearning process, understanding each other more, getting to a place that you both are receptive of what the other one is saying in this new way of expressing it to each other. And another really big reason why you don't see eye to eye that I really feel we don't talk about enough is the way that you get really emotionally sensitive during the time that you're trying to grow and heal. You're unpacking a lot within yourself. You're learning a lot about yourself. You're coming up with, childhood traumas, the way that people have hurt you in the past. Maybe some of those people that hurt you are still in your life, and you are working through all of that, even if it doesn't have anything to do with other people. It's things within yourself and mistakes that you wish that you could go back and change, and things that that you've betrayed yourself by doing. And now when you see yourself doing those same things, but now you're aware of it in your current life, you are more emotionally sensitive and vulnerable to it. You feel more triggered and upset by it. You feel angry at yourself for doing that. It's like every time you show up to the family event, you tell yourself, okay, I know that I've people pleased my whole way through this constantly, but I'm not going to do that anymore because I have this growth healing mindset. And then you get to the family party and you do that the entire fucking time, as revert to your old habits and people please. And then you're like, fucking Christ, what's wrong with me? And you get like so upset at yourself because you just weren't able to execute what you know that you need to. But that's a knowledge to skill gap. It takes practice. It takes time to be able to do that. But nonetheless, it still can feel really vulnerable and emotional and irritating, because you're uncovering all of these things at this time. You can also feel this way if it's the same people that caused the trauma in your life, or it's new people, but they have similar behaviors, or maybe behaviors that remind you of the ways that you were hurt in the past, and they act that way. It can cause you to really like lash out and be upset and not see eye to eye anymore, because you're like, you trigger me and I can't deal with it right now, or we're going to have to communicate and figure out a way to deal with it. And are you open to doing that? Because that's the other thing too, is it's like, just because you're healing, you can't expect other people to do the same thing. Hopefully they care about you enough to be open to that conversation and willing to take in what you have to say, so that you both can work together to better yourselves and your relationship. But not everybody is okay with that, like we talked about, and will be resistant to it. So it really brings up a lot of these feelings that are going to cause you to have to work with other people through them, so that you guys can keep each other in your life. And if it doesn't work out that way, it's aggravating. It's so sad, and so can feel so lonely and upsetting. The third one is how irritating it is that you can see that people can be doing more for themselves and they don't. That it's so clear that this person in your life could be doing something different and they don't see it. And you're just like, why don't you see this? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why do you think that this is the way to behave? Why do you think that this is the best thing for you? Why do you think that you should be taking this treatment that you don't deserve? Why do you want to lash out like that? Why are you being mean? Why are you so narcissistic? Why are you whatever your situation is? It's infuriating because you just know that that's not the way to live. You know that life could be so much better. You know that we're all just on this big floating rock and it's all not that serious and we need to just be nice and be loving and figure it out and work together. But for whatever reason, the people are so resistant to it and just want to be miserable and want to drag everybody down with them. And it's so fucking annoying. Even if they're not being directly a dick to you and wanting to drag you down too, it just drags you down inevitably because you see their behavior and are just like, God, that is just like asinine that you would like put up with that and act that way and live like that. Especially when you care about the person and you're just like, it's just, why are you doing that to yourself? It just makes everything so much clearer when you can see that they are, one, clearly not healed, and two, clearly see what they could work on in order to become a better version of themselves. Self-trust, setting boundaries, self-respect, whatever the situation is. It's like, it's typically so clear what they need to do. When before, when you would deal with people and you would know that something was up and they were treating you poorly and you didn't really know why, it was always just like, oh, well, they're insecure. And it was an easy thing to turn to. Where now that you are really working on yourself and working through the things that you've experienced in your life and these, built up negative mindsets that you have, you think you can see like, oh wow, yeah, that person has no self-respect. And it's like so sad because you're just like, why are you doing that? Or that person doesn't take any responsibility for their action, or that person has no confidence, like zero confidence whatsoever, or that person has severe childhood trauma. It just radiates from them. It becomes so clear what the person could work through, but you also know that it's not your business. It's not your job. It's not your job to try to fix people. It's not your place. You don't have the energy or the capacity to do that. You're working on yourself, and it's not your job to work on somebody else too. But it can be so upsetting because it's so freaking clear. It can be frustrating witnessing people not maximize their potential, that you know that they are capable of doing so much more and they don't. Or maybe you feel a sense of responsibility for a person, like a parent-child relationship, and you want to help them and help them grow and help them see from a very loving, kind, non-judgmental, not trying to change or fix them type of way, but you feel this responsibility to share what you have learned and what has made your life so much better with the people in your life that you love. And when they aren't receptive to it, or they aren't having a result from it, it can be frustrating. If you've put in an effort to better yourself, it can be frustrating when other people don't find it a priority to do the same, that they don't think it's important to show up for themselves also. That comparison can really lead to frustration, especially when you see that a person has similar resources as you, or has this, again, capability of accomplishing it, or that they've lived a pretty parallel life to yours, or that they have this opportunity that is pretty similar to yours. You just really feel on the same wavelength as them, but they aren't taking the opportunities that you took, and you want more for them, but they just won't do it. Sometimes frustration arises from wanting more for your community or your society, and I mean like your direct individual community and society, that you want a situation to be better or improved. And it could be if this person would try to heal and would try to hear other people out and would try to communicate better and would be open to a relationship that we could all agree on. But when they are stuck in their ways and they don't want to heal and they don't want to grow, it can be super frustrating because it makes the ecosystem of the intimate community or intimate society not work. And you so clearly can see how it could work and we could all get along and we could all be happy together if you guys just did X, Y, and Z, but they don't do that. And it seems like such a simple fix, but they won't behave. They won't, you can't control them and they won't fucking act right. And so it's like, you know exactly what would need to happen in order to make it better, but it can be so infuriating because they don't do it and there's nothing you can do about it. The fourth one is you just straight up don't want the negativity. And this can look like a couple different things. One of the biggest things that I feel I experience is that when you start to become a healed, grown person, you don't want to deal with people that aren't, because it's typically negative emotions and conversations. It's typically victim-esque. You can see all of the areas that their life sucks and they do nothing about it. You can see how things would get so much better for them if they just change something, but they don't. It's keeping themselves stagnant in the same position because they just can't let go of an idea. They have a closed mindset, and you don't want that in your life. You know, they continue to behave in these ways that you don't agree with anymore. They're still gossiping all the time. They're only thinking about themselves. They are being rude. They're not allowing you to say no. They're expecting things from you that they shouldn't be. And you just don't have it in you to deal with that negativity anymore. It can also be, though, that people get like offended by you trying to heal and become more knowledgeable. It's like they think that you're trying to be better than them, or that you're trying to like show up better than them, and it's you're not. Like, if you can picture, like, anytime you've ever tried to be healthy, if you can picture like, oh yeah, they just like have to go to the gym or have to go to bed on time, or like they just, oh, like, what do you look so nice for today? Like, that they have to make a fucking comment because for whatever reason you trying to show up as a better version of yourself threatens them and makes them feel bad about themselves. And it's almost like they think that you're trying to like insult them, that you're saying that whatever they do is wrong. Like, oh, I'm gonna parent this way. Oh, so that means that you think that I'm not a good parent? Like, what? They take things so personally when you start to show up as a healed version of yourself, because it really, a lot of the time, is what we as a society say that we should be doing. And so when you start to act that way because it makes you actually feel good, and this other person doesn't want to act that way, they feel like shit about it. When this happens, you really can experience invalidating responses to your healing and jealousy, and honestly, like, sabotaging it, whether it's subconscious or conscious. It's like they feel so threatened by you wanting to be this better version of yourself that they will try to put you down or put you in your place so that you keep in the same box that they've always known you to be in. You might experience people withdrawing from you because they don't know how to interact with this new version of you. Like, when people are like, oh, you're different now, you're boring now, they don't want to involve themselves with you anymore because, like I was saying earlier, you don't serve the same purpose that you used to for them. Whether it's you not wanting to deal with their negativity or them being negative about your newfound knowledge and growth and healing, you just don't want to deal with the negativity. So you don't have people in your life. You feel more alone because you just can't vibe with it. And it feels better to spend time by yourself than time with people that make you feel not good about yourself. So how do we overcome this feeling of loneliness so that we can continue on our healing and growth journey as unbothered as possible. You have to learn the skill of validating yourself in your healing and self-growth journey. Like that is a number one thing that you have to learn and figure out is how to freaking validate yourself. You have to ask your questions like, am I behaving in alignment with the best version of myself? Is this how the best version of me would show up? Am I behaving as my true self would? Would I do anything differently? And when the answer is no, you can feel validated in the fact that this is okay. But how about things like when people act fucking weird and you are like, why would they act like that? Why would they behave like that? I think that's a really little bit harder of a way to validate yourself in, but being able to do so by asking yourself what your values are and understanding that you just don't think the same way that they do. And yes, what they said is absolutely what an insane person says, because you in your sane, healed growth mindset would never behave that way. And most people in your life would never behave that way. And anybody that you look up to and anybody that you know that is healed and who you would view as a person that you would want to align with and be like and whatever would never behave that way. So being able to validate yourself in that sense and then letting it go, because you don't want to continue to harp on it and dwell on it and reel in it. Just being able to take that as a validating answer, understand it and know it as truth because it's true for you, and then move on with your life instead of continuing to dwell in it to the point that you need to reach out to somebody else and ask somebody else what they think of the situation. That you can be like, no, this is what I think and this is the reasons I think it. Okay, that's it. Now I have to move on with my life. You have to trust that you are doing the right things for you, that you know what's best for you more than anybody else, no matter who else is in your life. You have to trust that you know what's best for you, not your significant other, not your best friend, not your family. You are who knows what is best for you at the end of the day, because it is your life and you're the only one that has to experience 100% of it. You have to know that you cannot change people. You have to either accept them as they are, or you have to choose to remove them from your life. There is no in between. There is no in between, because the in between is you trying to therapize them or change them or help them see their potential, help them grow. And you can only do that so much, but you don't have to do that with the right relationships, like we were talking about last week. And it's not just, romantic, it's any sort of relationship that you have. Everybody should want what's best for themselves, and you can support them in that journey. You can, obviously provide insight and advice and ideas and things that helped you, but they have to do the work and the heavy lifting on their own. And if they're not doing that, it's not your job to go in and change them. You have to know that you cannot control how other people behave. So you have to either accept their behavior as it is and be there and hope for them to grow and get better and improve. And that would be great if they did, but you also have to accept them exactly as they are now. You can't accept them for a future version that you see the potential in them to become. You have to just accept them right now as they are, if they never changed. And if you cannot come to terms with that, then you have to remove them from your life, because that's not fair to you and it's not fair to them to have a person in their life that just doesn't see eye to eye to that degree. I also think there is nothing wrong with trying to seek support from people that do have a like mindset as you. If you do feel like you have a similar mindset to somebody else in your life, seeking support from them and asking what their opinion is and getting validation from them. And I know that, we were talking about validation for ourselves, and absolutely that's number one. And that's the skill that we really need to learn, but we do enjoy connection. And it is very nice to hear from somebody else what you're experiencing is bullshit or whatever. And when you hear that from somebody, it can help you in your healing and growth journey continue even farther. So if you seek out support from people that you really trust and care about and know will agree with you and know will think the same way as you, it can be a really good, powerful feeling to propel you forward and continue on this journey instead of stunting you by, making you reel and overthink and question yourself. Another way to really seek support too is finding professional support, like having a therapist. If you don't have people in your life that do have a like mind as you, or if you do, it doesn't matter. But, if you don't and you think like, God, I'm the only one that thinks this way, I don't understand, seeking out support from a professional that will validate you and your feelings and will encourage you to continue on this growth journey and will allow you to understand that the way that you are thinking is the healthy way of thinking. And most people aren't thinking in the healthy way. They're not taking the time to heal in the same ways that you are. And having a professional tell you that by no obligation and no bias feels really great. Expressing your thoughts and feelings in journaling, I think, is really helpful too. Being able to write down the things that you're experiencing, write down what you don't like that other people are doing, what is irritating you about people's behavior, how you're not aligning with people, and it can help you, get it out of your brain and onto a piece of paper, and it relieves it in that way so that you can move on. But honestly, the number one thing with this is how much it helps you make sense of it, that it helps you make sense of where they need to stand in your life, of why it bothers you, of how you could continue to heal from this, of triggers that it brings up inside of you. It helps you understand and know yourself better. It helps you decide how to navigate the relationship further, because you've written it all down and mapped it all out and tried to understand it a little bit more. And that's not to say that, the next time you interact with them, you're not going to feel frustrated. You might have to take to another journal entry to kind of sort that next problem out, but at least you have a little bit more clarity and you know how to interact with that person the next time that you are in a situation that you are feeling like you guys are disagreeing and not seeing eye to eye, and you're frustrated because they're not at the same healing place as you, and you can so clearly see what's going on with them, or whatever the situation is. You'll be able to map that out and try to gain a better understanding of it than you would if you just left it in the shitstorm of your mind. We have to normalize having nobody instead of having people that don't provide us with unwavering support and love in our life. We think that even if the friends aren't quality, even if the significant other isn't quality, even if the family isn't quality, that we have to have them in our life because we're supposed to have those three relationships. But we have to, as a society, normalize that it is better to not have anybody in your life and to clear the roster out completely, and then start to gain people that do have like mindsets as you and will make you feel good about yourself and will support you and will make you feel loved, than it is to have it filled with these relationships that you're supposed to have, but they tear you down, make you question who you are, make you feel bad about yourself, make you feel invalidated, prevent you from growing into the best version of yourself that you know that you can become. I feel so many people experience these feelings of loneliness because it's coming from a place of I should have this relationship, compared to loneliness because you just don't have it. It's like you feel like you're doing something wrong because you don't have these relationships in your life. And so you really have to take a moment to assess if it is lack of connection that you're experiencing, because that's a normal thing too. Humans want human connection. That is like a basic human need. And you're not crazy for wanting to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of community, a sense of validation from other people in your life. That's a very caveman biological feeling. But you have to ask yourself, is it that, or is it that I just think that I should have these relationships even though I don't have ones that make me feel good? And being able to find that awareness and proceed from there. If it is genuine lack of community, what can you do to build up your community? What can you do to put yourself in situations with like-minded people? Or if it is this feeling of that you should have these relationships, being able to see the benefit of not having anybody compared to having people that tear you down, experiencing how much better you feel by just being by yourself and not having people in your ear making you feel like shit about who you are, that you can feel happy and solid and good when you're alone because you don't have this negative mindset constantly being thrown at you. Would you trade your healing and growth and awareness for these relationships? Maybe. It sure as hell would make your life a shit ton easier, but you know deep in your heart that it's not what actually makes you happy. That if you were to revert back to the person that you would have to be in order to keep these relationships in your life and keep them in your life in a way that don't frustrate you, you will have to go back to these habits that a less healed version of yourself would do, a version of yourself that wasn't the best version of you. You would have to go back to those old habits, and it's just not worth it at the end of the day. It is disappointing and it sucks because it really feels like it's your own doing. It really feels like if you weren't healing and weren't this growth mindset person that, you could just easily have these things, but you know in your heart that it's not what made you happy. It's not what made you feel good. And that this is the first time that you have actually allowed yourself to feel good by being able to heal and grow and learn about who you are. Trust the process. Trust that you will find people that have similar mindsets to you. Trust that you will find people, even if they're people already in your life, that one day will work to heal and you can see are already trying to heal and become a better version of themselves, that you will one day be surrounded by people that do think similar to you. Even if it's not a big group of people, it's just one or two people, but you will have people in your life that make you feel validated and good and supported and full because you guys are on the same wavelength. And during this time that you haven't found the people in your life that have a similar mindset as you, being able to know that you are showing up for yourself in the way that makes you feel good, that you are making the best decisions for yourself, and overall your life is better because of that, despite the occasional feelings of loneliness. Trusting that as you continue through life, you will find a way to involve yourself in things that make you feel full and make you feel good. It's pretty damn cool that you're doing something huge for yourself, something that most people in their life will never even make an effort to do. That's a pretty kick-ass thing to try to become a better version of yourself. And what an awesome life you're going to live because you're making the effort to do that, despite the fact that it might completely change relationships in your life. That is a very brave and courageous thing to do. So many people just turn a blind eye. So many people just keep chugging through and don't take a moment to try to become aware, to try to understand what's happening or try to understand themselves better. They just push it off and project, and you're not doing that. You are taking genuine action despite the hardship that comes with it to become a better version of yourself. And that is some impressive fucking strong shit. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really appreciate your listen because it really contributes to making us all feel a little bit less alone. Me, you, every person in the elite, we all are on this journey to become better versions of ourselves, and it can feel so alone when you are experiencing this lack of relationship in your life. But we all have each other, and it's all going to be all right. And we're going to find what's best for us in this life. So thank you for listening. If you have any stories or questions that you would like shared on the show, make sure to submit them through the submission box on Wellish's Instagram at Wellish Podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram and on TikTok for daily tips to become the best version of yourself. They're both going to be my first and last name. Instagram is just going to have a dot between Sarah and Rittendale. Thank you so much again for listening. Make sure your week kicks fucking ass. You are so elite. You don't even know how elite you truly are. I will talk to you guys next Monday. Bye.